Welcome to What the Flick, everybody. Brett, Jason, Amir sitting in. Yeah, we're gonna talk about G'day Melbourne. This is episode 4 of the season so far. Yeah, and we didn't review last week's episode, but we have to kind of mention it in the course of reviewing this week's episode. So this episode starts with a trip to Australia. And they have to go to the airport. And they separate each other from each other as they go through TSA because Nora is carrying $20,000 in cash on her body, but she doesn't really say that to Kevin when they go through there, and then reveals that. And I feel like that is like one of the many telling points in their relationship along the way here.
I agree.
So she kind of offers this, justification for doing it. But what do you think about their relationship as she says, "I'll see you on the other side"?
There's a ton of tension. It's never been an okay relationship.
Yeah, the secrets have kind of built up to this point.
Right. So she, like you just mentioned, she says, "I'll see you on the other side." The way that even they kiss, that they have any interactions with each other, the way that she immediately gets to the hotel, answers the phone in a panic, and then runs out, and he says, "Dinner later?" Okay, like it was always a fractured
Up till this point, does Kevin even know the real reason why she's going to Australia?
She has given the reason as she's investigating some kind of sting operation, but
clearly it's a lot bigger than just investigating something.
Right.
Yeah, has no idea of the full extent of all this stuff.
And I think another just mention on the relationship is he said, "Why didn't you give me half of the money? You could have easily just both taken the money there."
Trust.
Right. Yeah, there's no trust there. Exactly.
But I had a feeling like they were getting along pretty well going up to this. I mean, yeah, he did have his secrets, and she did walk in on him with a bag over his head.
Still my favorite line.
But after that moment, they handled it as healthily as a relationship can handle, walking in on someone else in your relationship with a bag over their head.
Yeah.
Given the circumstances, it's like they both don't want to be alone because they're terrified of themselves.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they are so self-destructive.
Yeah.
I mean, Kevin's literally seeing things again, although it being a human and somebody that's actually there, that's a whole different scene in itself. That was probably the best I thought of the whole episode, was the interaction between Kevin and Amy Brenneman's the actress's name. Why can't I think of
Evie?
Not just Evie, his ex-wife, Lori.
Lori.
And walking him through not seeing that person without ever saying, "You're seeing people. You're seeing a Patty again." She never said it. She just said, "Look back at the phone." So like he's completely going off the deep end again, while she can't seem to really grasp any sort of reality, that she doesn't, like she wants to be in that place where her family is. Now I'm talking about Nora, but at the same time, that would probably result in her killing herself. She's willing to take that extreme.
Yeah, so that's what so Nora, well, we've got 2 things we just mentioned there. We can talk first about Kevin seeing Evie on the morning show.
Right.
And it's one of those moments where he looks on the television, tries to turn it off, it won't turn off. It seems similar to a television experience that he had in his like after-death experience where he sees his father on the other side of the TV. That seemed to be real. This was very much not. And he goes after her. So, and then it's, Lori is the one who kind of chalks it up to, okay, I immediately know how to handle this.
Right.
So what do you think about Kevin and seeing like the Evie character and going to the library after that?
Just goosebumps even thinking about it when he sees her staring at her through the TV. But I think again, the show is making you question if all of this is really happening or is the supernatural element actually real?
Yeah.
And like you have that in the first season where you're asking that question. The second season, you're kind of convinced, okay, this is real. He actually got shot and he came back to life. And then again, in this episode, you're asked to question it again because you go through this whole thing through Kevin's point of view, and then at the end, you're told that it's not real, or he's suffering definite mental illness.
Right.
Yeah, and how much the average person in this world has kind of come to terms with the fact that people are gonna be crazy right now.
Yeah.
Like in the TSA line, when she's going through it, the TSA guy just kind of looks at her when someone behind says, "I gotta get to Antarctica."
Yeah, yeah.
Which is equally as ridiculous as this joyride they're going on, or absence of joyride they're going on to Australia. And folks are just like, yeah, people are crazy.
That's what I love most about the show is that, first of all, you're taking this premise of how would people cope with this disaster that has no answer. Like the show promised you in the beginning, we're not gonna give you answers. There might be a supernatural element. We're never gonna find out where they are. I think that would actually ruin a lot of aspects of the show if they happen to be like, oh, they actually did get sent to star cluster B7 and they're literally floating around in space.
Right.
Oh, I love
2% of Earth. I would hate if that was an actual thing that they actually did in this show. I like the idea that they're making you question. And I also think what they do amazingly in the show is that they show the global impact of this entire 2% being taken, because 2% of the world's population obviously is a major chunk, and what many shows, I guess, don't do is you live within the confines of that town or that city.
No,
right?
but this affected the entire
This
world.
went across, and now they're showing globally. They show you Australia. In the first season, they went to, Nora goes to New York. I think it's New York City, at least, to give you like a bigger picture feel of what's going on. She gives the speech as a 3 or 4 departure survivor, whatever that word would be. So they show you how the world's reacting to it, and nobody really has everything together, from the wildest theories of I'm going to radiate you into where we believe they are, to those who are trying to make money off of it by scamming it to every element that they bring into it.
Nora being Azrael, the god of death.
Yes.
Right.
It's like what is going on?
Right. These two lovers don't give a crap about each other.
No.
They might eventually double back and reconcile, but that seems to be the pattern. And I don't know how much I like that pattern. It does open us up to the opportunity for each character to go have like a compelling story arc within an episode, independent of each other. But that dynamic of them coming back and kind of reconciling and whatever. But if we're following Nora's experience when she gets to Melbourne, she goes and she ends up meeting up with the scientists who are about to send her through space. She gets that experience getting put into like the sensory deprivation tests, which she passes, but they ask her the riddle.
Right.
If there's 2 twins, one has to die in order for the other to cure cancer. She says, kids die every day. She kind of takes a minute to go through it, and then says, I would kill the kid.
She actually asks what I thought was a really interesting question before she answers the question. She goes, do you have kids? And she goes, doesn't matter. I go, of course it matters. It affects the outcome of what I'm gonna say. Because if the person asking the question does have kids, they're gonna probably have a different perspective. I don't have kids, therefore, sure. If you're asking me the question, one's gonna grow up to cure cancer.
So what did you guys think about this? Did you guys think that there's a right answer to this?
No,
or are they saying no to everyone, maybe?
I think it ties back into, and this was a big thing on Reddit yesterday, but I think it ties back into the episode beforehand where Garvey Sr. he gets bit by the snake and he's possibly seeing things we don't know because he's got bit by a snake, and he walks up to a guy who comes out of his car, and the guy looks at him. He's dousing his car in gasoline or whatever it is he's using, and himself, and he goes, "Would you kill a baby to cure cancer?" And I think Kevin Garvey Sr. says yes. He goes, "That's what I said."
I think he said no.
Oh, he says no.
He says no, I wouldn't.
Right.
I think
it's the opposite of what Nora says.
Yes.
Right. So he says no, and he goes, "That's what I said," and he lights himself on fire. And then Nora said yes.
So they're saying no to both people.
They're saying
maybe
people,
the test is how you react once you're given.
And that's the kind of thing they sound like questions asked in like Microsoft interviews when you go to try to work for Facebook or a venture capital firm, and they ask you questions like, it's just like there's a man in a room and he's hanging and there's no chairs or anything. He's hanging by his neck and there's a puddle, and you have to be like, oh, there was an ice cube and he slowly died, and you have to figure that out. And they don't necessarily care about you figuring out the riddle. They want to see how you attack it, and And it seems to me the takeaway here is they either are not accepting anyone because it's an exclusive club, and they rely on Mark Lindbaker upon being accepted, going and killing himself, the same way this guy doused himself in gasoline and no one's any the wiser. They get rid of themselves in some remote location. or they want folks who think through it the same way as them to go forward. And that creates like the same kind of buy-in that you get in a cult of like-minded people or a religion. And then you have people like Nora who when you ask them are saying, these people are fucking crazy, but they still want to get invited to the party. And I think they do a really good job in this episode of keeping it ambiguous as to whether Nora actually wants to go through with this to see their kids again. But this all parallels one approach to religion and people's fears and hopes and the ways they can be saved or maybe taken advantage of in relation to their thoughts about the afterlife. But I think, yeah, so I mean, does that make sense to anybody?
No, I like where you're going with that because when there is no one answer. And I think when you look at it from Nora's perspective, she's battling between, does she want to live in reality and accept, because it seems like 3 seasons later, she has not accepted the fact that her family's been taken. Granted, I don't know who would ever accept that.
Yeah.
Or do you want to literally radiate yourself to the point of being killed? Because that's what that is. Also, on a very random but quick note, they said that all flights were grounded at the end of that episode because of an explosion.
Yeah.
Did you catch that? And it couldn't be from a hotel explosion. Like, that wouldn't ground flights. Was it possibly that the thing blew up that sends you into,
Maybe that's,
I don't know, oblivion or whatever it might be?
I don't know, but yeah, that is a big question. Flights are grounded, maybe it's.
He needs a cab, he's like, the flights are grounded. Then Kevin Garvey Sr. shows up.
Yeah, I thought the explosion was in the hotel, but it was hard to really.
Which made me think, like, is Nora super dead? Did
But
she
then
just sit there and blow up?
Then they go back to her alone in the apartment.
Right.
And then the reason that there's a fire alarm at all is because Kevin, after having chances to incinerate the book and deciding not to, finally going on his weird fugue state and finding out that Nora left him in order to go down this crazy road to come back, and then they call each other out. He finally says, screw it, I'm lighting this book on fire.
Yeah.
And so is that.
Does that go in the book?
Does that automatically never-ending story style just add to the end of the book?
No, I'm saying, like, he lit the book on fire. Does that go in the book?
I don't know. If Matt finds out about it with his Kinko's version, his like.
I like they do
Kinko's
keep it very
copy.
2017. He's got some electronic record. We think, because what do you call it? It's writing it to Garvey Sr.
Yeah.
From the first episode.
Yeah.
Evie's brother, who's not Evie.
So at the end of the episode, we see that Kevin has met up with his father. What's next for them?
I love that relationship between Kevin Garvey Sr. and the woman who found the wrong Kevin Garvey, or the wrong Kevin, who's a police chief, and they drowned him. He's gonna stay in Australia. I think, again, this is gonna be a whole, how is everybody else getting to Australia? Like, my feeling is Lori's coming to Australia because that's the only person who can actually help Kevin, as seen from that conversation over the phone, where she is which is crazy too, because she's built psychologically to help Kevin. She is a psychologist or a psychiatrist.
Yeah, psychiatrist.
She's the one person who could help him, and she was the one who did. Hence why it says a lot that he called her. He didn't call Nora, he didn't call Matt for any religious guy, he called Lori.
Right.
To get the help to see to ask about Evie, that I'm staring at her. So I think Lori's gonna come over there. John will be over there at some point if there's some time together. Matt, obviously, if he finds out the book was burned, is on his first trip to Australia.
Right.
Everyone's gonna get there. So I don't know. I hope they drown Kevin Garvey Sr. and he comes back to life.
Yeah, and then we find out they're all the same Kevin. But then again, that's all that feeds into like a mystery. We'll find out the answer approach, and that's not what this is at all. It's. Every time I think to myself, I want to find out what happened to those people, it brings back to your attention that like that's the motivator.
Any actual idea for how they wrap up and end the show?
I don't know. I'm trying to figure out how old Nora is going to fit into all of this.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. They showed her in
that has to be our
episode
endpoint.
2.
So what happens up until then?
I wonder if she's left. I know it sounds so bad, but just alone.
Or if she's in the other place where everybody else is.
That's where she's
That's
in.
it, yeah.
She's in other Australia.
She's in other Australia.
She's in New Zealand.
Yeah, up over. I don't know. All right, well, that's our review and recap of The Leftovers. Check it out next week. We'll be back with another episode. Bye.
know that.